Not all investors are created equal. If you want to become a successful property investor, you really need to understand the 5 levels of investing, which is a model that I've designed to help explain how most investors progress along their own path to financial freedom. Now, just to make things clear, this has nothing to do with your level of income, it's nothing to do with your level of wealth, but it has a lot to do with your financial fluency and your financial intelligence. Now, I see a lot of clients who ask for our help at Metropole, and I see it in their approach to investing and, more importantly, in their results. So if you want to work your way up the rung of investors, and that's what I'm going to explain to you how to do today to work your way up the rung, you're first of all going to have to understand which level you're at right now, and then you're going to have to learn what to do to get up to the next level. Now, some investors try to become more than their education, more than their way of thinking has prepared them for, and that's probably why they get stuck or fail, while other investors, they just plateau, they stay at the same level of investor over the years. Now, today's episode is part of what I'm calling the Summer Series, where apart from bringing you one new show each week, we are replaying 2 previously published shows. Now, the foundation levels I'm going to share with you in today's show was a show that I originally published a number of years ago, but it's going to help you take advantage of the new property cycle, the cycle that's appearing in front of our eyes in 2021, because these foundational lessons are timeless. I hope after today's episode you're going to understand more about the different levels of investors and where you fit into them. Now, to be blunt, most investors will never make it to the top of the investment pyramid. But today I want to explain to you why and what you have to do if you want to work your way up the rungs. Over the years, many investors have asked me advice about investing, and I can tell from their questions their experience level and their understanding just won't match the type of investments they're pursuing. No wonder they can't work their way up the ranks. They can't hit the top level 5 investor. It's a bit like trying to race, the Tour de France and still have training wheels on your bike. So I plan to help you understand what level of investor you are and what you're going to have to learn, what you're going to have to do differently to get to the next level. Now, while I often have guests on the show, in today's episode of the Michael Yardney podcast, I think this topic's too important, so it's just going to be me. It's going to be a long monologue, but as I explained, it should help you. It should propel you to move to the next level of your investing. And then I'm going to share with you a mindset message from one of my mentors, again, to help you along your way to financial success. So welcome to today's episode of the Michael Yardney podcast.
Welcome to the Michael Yardney podcast, where twice each week you will learn a number of new ideas regarding success, property investment and money in around 30 minutes. Our show is brought to you by Metropole, who specialise in helping you grow, protect and pass on your wealth through strategic property and wealth advice. Now here's your host, Michael Yardney, Australia's authority in wealth creation through property, who has been voted one of Australia's top 50 most influential thought leaders.
Now, today I've got a reasonably long lesson for you. It's about the 5 levels of investing. The problem is, if you want to become a successful investor, you really need to understand the 5 levels of investing, which is a model that I've created to explain the progression that most investors take in their path to developing financial freedom. Now, just to make things clear, this has got nothing to do with your level of income. I've seen people who earn hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, yet by spending most of it on a flashy lifestyle, these people fail to ever build a substantial asset base. Having said that, I've also seen successful investors build a very substantial property investment business while they're working at what some people would call menial jobs, their day jobs, earning relatively little in income. But these people eventually manage to build a property investment business, which means their job becomes something they choose to do, not something they have to do as a primary source of income. So as I go through these levels of investors with you, I want you to think about where you fit into this model. And as I go through each level of investment, what I'm going to explain is what you need to do to get up to the next level, because it's a continuum. So I want you to go from whichever level you are today, and no judgment about that, to become a level 4 investor, a professional property investor, and you'll understand what that is as I work through this model. As I say, I've just seen so many people over the years put this model together, but I've also recognized that most people don't get up to the next level. Most stay at level 1 or level 2 investors. And we'll talk a bit about why that happens as we go on. So let me start explaining this model to you. First of all, down the bottom of the rung, and again, it's not a judge of people, but it's where they are financially, level zeros. Level zero investors are the spenders. They're actually not really investors at all. They tend to be spenders and borrowers, and as a result, they end up with a high level of debt. They spend everything they earn, and often more. Their money runs out before the month does, and they usually survive from pay packet to pay packet, and they use credit cards and store cards where they can to get themselves through. And if they ever get any money, they spend it. If they don't have any money, they borrow it. You know these people, they need some cash, so they go to an ATM and pay a fee to collect and advance their own money, and then they pay interest on it. Their solution to any financial issues that arise is to spend their way out of it or take on more debt. Now, do you know any level zero investors? Unfortunately, a large part of Australia's adult population falls into this category. It's just not in Australia. In fact, in most Western countries. And the problem is they're never going to become wealthy unless they do something radically different. They've got to learn about money, about wealth, about money habits. They've got to learn delayed gratification and not to spend more they earn. They've got to learn how to budget. All those things they don't like doing, but they don't see where their money goes. They're living for the moment. But then there's the next level up, and I call these level one investors the savers. And the vast majority of people who are not spenders generally tend to fall into this level one category of savers. Their main investment's their home, which they aim to pay off over time. Sometimes they save a little, squirreling away a few dollars left over after paying tax. But in general, when they do save, they save to consume, not to invest. Savers, they tend to be afraid of financial matters. They're generally unwilling to take risks. But it's not their fault. They're following the plan their parents and their grandparents followed. They were told, get a steady job, buy a house, pay it off, save a nest egg for retirement. The problem is saving, or even owning your own home, just won't make you rich. What usually happens is they work really hard over their lifetime, diligently saving a bit, paying off their home, and all they're left with at the end is a modest, most likely old and tired house. Savers are what I call financially illiterate. So if you know any level one investors, maybe somebody close to you that you know too well, your job will then be to focus your efforts on building a solid base of financial and investment skills upon which you can grow your financial future. Savers are going to get the most leverage by investing in themselves first and getting quality financial education and beginning to build a network of peers around them to take the journey with. Unfortunately, there's so many places you can get good financial information from, like this podcast, like Property Updates, like a lot of other good blogs. But you've got to be careful who you listen to. Don't get sucked in by the spruikers and the get-rich-quick people, which tends to happen a bit to the next level, which I'd call level 2, the passive investors. You see, level 2 investors are aware that they need to invest. They realise that their superannuation won't get them through retirement. They start learning about investment, they begin accumulating assets. Now, while they're generally intelligent people, they're still what I would call financially illiterate. No one's taught them about the rules of money. They don't understand the rules of money. But remember, it's not their fault. Nobody taught them. If anything, their parents taught them old-fashioned and out-of-date concepts about money. Do you know anyone like that? Now, rather than taking responsibility for their financial education themselves, level 2 investors tend to look for answers to their investment needs from outside sources, from so-called experts. This makes them such easy prey for the latest get-rich-quick scheme, for the property scammers, for the flash-in-the-pan investment strategies spruiked by the latest trend. Instead, what they should be doing is refining their financial and investing education and focusing their efforts on choosing a specific wealth vehicle that they're going to master. They must unlearn flawed and incorrect, misguided lessons that they've learned about money and wealth from unqualified teachers. So level 2 investors, the passive investor, have to unlearn what they've learned from their parents and be very careful of who they get financial advice from. Unfortunately, at the moment, it's so easy to build a good website, send out a newsletter, do the videos on YouTube, go on Instagram, and sound like you know what you're doing. As this new cycle is now starting, there's a whole lot of you, let's call them spruikers out there, who don't have their clients' best interest at heart. So be very careful who you get advice from if you're a passive investor. But you do have to learn, you do have to take financial control, you do have to be in charge of your own education. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't outsource a lot of the work, as a lot of clients do outsource to us at Metropole to help them with a strategy, to help them buy a property, to help them with wealth advice. But you should never outsource the knowledge. You need to get the knowledge. Moving up the rung of investors is the level 3 investor. I call them the active investors. Level 3 realise they've got to take responsibility for their financial future, so they become actively involved in their investment decisions. So the next one up the rung are level 3 investors, what I call the active investors. They realise that they've got to take responsibility for their financial future and become actively involved in their investment decisions. They become financially literate because they build a knowledge base of investment strategies and techniques. They're starting to get their money working for them. And that's where I want you you to start to move up to. So these investors are actively participating in the management of their investments, and they are concentrating on building their wealth. Their main focus is not on cash flow. They recognise they've got to build an asset base. Now, by saying they're an active investor, I'm not saying they're managing their property themselves. I'm not saying that they're going out even sourcing the properties for themselves or doing the research. They've got a good team around them, but what they do is they first get the knowledge so they can understand who's on their side and who's actually working for the property marketers and the project marketers. So these people don't buy off the plan investments or rental guarantee properties in regional Australia, because they recognise that their job is to build assets. So they're at the asset accumulation stage of their investment life, and they've generally moved now to high growth, low yield investments to grow their wealth. So they're not chasing the quick cash flow the level 2 investors are. And that's where residential real estate really shines. It's the best asset class I know for growing your wealth. So level 3 investors usually leverage their time and expertise by having a network of industry professionals, because they realise they can't do it all themselves. They also upgrade their network of advisors and peers, and they join mastermind groups of like-minded people because they want to move to the next level, the pinnacle that I call a level 4 or a professional investor. Now, a very small group of investors reach this top rung of the ladder. Very few become what I call a level 4 professional investor who build and now manage a true investment business. A level 4 investor's property investment business has got a substantial asset base that keeps generating sufficient recurring passive income to pay for their lifestyle costs, plus keep growing their investment portfolio, whether they've got a job, a real job, or not. So a lot of these people still have a real job. They've got a business or a profession or a job, and then they have this separate property investment business that doesn't have as many moving parts. They're generally well educated, they're financially fluent, they're comfortable with the language of money, they understand how the game of money is played. They understand the system of finance, tax and the law, and they've learned to use it to their advantage. These investors tend to concentrate on optimising the performance of their properties, while at the same time, they actually don't take risks. They minimise their risks. Some of them are still at the accumulation stage, but now as they start to build an asset base, they start to become more interested in cash flow that'll allow them to get the most out of their life. So rather than investing what's left after they've spent the money that they've earned, they've got the correct tax structures in place to enable them to spend what's left over after their money starts making investment decisions. They keep ploughing cash back into further investments. They've got a finance strategy. They've got financial buffers to buy themselves time, to see themselves through the ups and downs of the economic cycles or the property cycles. And they understand the law as it relates to property, so they don't make the mistakes so many beginning investors do. Now, these level 4 investors, these professional investors, don't hand control of their investments over to others. They still retain control while employing a proficient team. They've got accountants, they've got finance brokers, they've got property managers, they have property strategists and solicitors. They've got people who've got great systems to achieve repeated and consistent results. Results that are reliable, results that are predictable. So this gives level 4 investors the freedom to choose whether they get up in the morning, whether they go to work or not. Many still continue working, I do, because they enjoy it. But now they go to work because they choose to, not because they have to. Others find time to contribute more to the community or to charities. Neither the state of the economy or the stage of the property markets really seems to phase to affect these professional investors. They seem to make money in good times, good economic times and bad. But the big point is that level 4 investors rarely stop educating themselves. They read, they still attend seminars, they surround themselves with a team of advisors and mentors. And I come across a lot of level 4 investors at Wealth Retreat. And people would wonder why, when you're already financially successful, would you spend 5 days and $10,000 to go and learn more? And the answer is because they're prepared to pay for solid advice. They're prepared to keep growing and improving, not only to increase their wealth, but also to protect their assets from all sorts of things like opportunistic family members, lawsuits, the government. You're going to find level 4 investors personally own very little in their own name. They instead own nothing but control everything through companies and trusts. By controlling the legal entities that own their assets, these investors gain considerable legal tax benefits. They also have asset protection from this. Now, a final point about level 4 investors is that they teach their financial knowledge to their children. They pass on their family fortune to future generations because their companies or their trusts endure after they've departed this life. And that's what Ken Race at Metropole Wealth Advisory spends a lot of time doing, advising high net worth individuals, advising people who want to become high net worth individuals to set themselves up to be able to grow, protect and pass on their wealth. So Let me get another point across to you. Asset growth has to come first and then the income stage. It's important to understand that to become financially free, first of all, you've got to educate yourself. The next stage is asset accumulation. So your job as a level 3 investor is to build a sufficiently large asset base to fuel your cash machine. And then, only then, when you've got a sufficiently large asset base, do you transition into the cash flow, the income stage of your life as you become a level 4 investor. The reason most people don't become level 4 investors is that because they don't build a big enough asset base because they're chasing cash flow, and you'll never become rich that way. Sure, you need cash flow. You need it to service your debts, but your focus should be on growing your assets rather than your income. So now that I've explained that a bit, time for some home truths. What level of investor are you? Where do you currently sit in this hierarchy of investors? Now, don't be upset. Everybody starts at the bottom at level 0. But not everybody makes it to level 4. In fact, very few do. But you can, once you understand why the rich keep getting richer. Remember, this assessment of your current level of wealth has got nothing to do with your income. You can be a low-income earner when it comes to your day job, but still be a level 3 investor and have financial security. Likewise, you could be considered rich by your working income standards, but still be at level 0 in wealth, spending every dollar you earn. So what I want you to understand is your pay packet, the pay packet you work for every day, has nothing to do with the level of wealth you are. And in fact, it's one of the worst predictors of wealth. Now, why do I say that? Well, I come across many clients at Metropole who earn substantial income, yet still don't have anything to show for it. And similarly, as I say, I keep finding plenty of people who've got modest incomes who've grown substantial property portfolios. Now, I know Bob, my doctor. He's earned hundreds of thousands of dollars a year for the last 40 years. He's in his late 60s now. He drives a lovely European car, but this is a true story. He still lives in a rented house and still continues to feel like he's on a treadmill. Every day he goes to his medical practice to see patients, and at the end of the month, he just manages to pay the bills. Remember the level 0 investors we talked about a short while ago? Now, I've spoken to him about this a couple of times. The trouble is, every time he earns money, he seems to spend it. He's never managed to put anything aside in the way of savings or investment or even an emergency fund. I remember a while ago he said to me his car broke down, he needed some major repairs, and even that created a degree of financial hardship for him. Now, the story of somebody like Bob, who probably earns, I don't know, $300,000, $400,000 a year, that may sound strange to you. But if you're like most people, despite working for around 40 years and having earned millions of dollars in their lifetime, most people never become financially free. In fact, most people retire just above broke. So the question isn't really, can you make a few $1 million? Because if you multiply your income out by 20, 30 years of working life, the answer is you will. But my question to you is, are you able to keep a few $1 million? If you're like Bob, in fact, if you're like many people, you're going to find it difficult to save and you're going to find it really easy to spend. So I asked Bob why he still rents. Yet despite his income, he hasn't managed to save a deposit for his own home. He told me the following story. He said every new year he makes a resolution and he says to his wife, this year I'm going to take $1,000 out of my pay each week and put it aside for the future. Now, I know $1,000 a week is so much. You probably can't even imagine having that amount to save from your wages. But that's okay. Just follow the story because you get my point, and it's true. He said he hoped to put this money into a savings account because it would give him a deposit to finally purchase their own home. And when I asked him why this hadn't happened, he said life gets in the way. Somebody got sick, he needed a new TV, his car broke down. You know what it's like. There are always unexpected expenses. So he asked me, Michael, how do you do it? How can I do it? What am I doing wrong? And I explained to him that if he wanted to save, but didn't make a firm commitment to pay himself first, it just wouldn't work. And I suggested he does exactly what the government does. And he said, what do you mean, Michael? And I said, every time you get paid, the government automatically takes a small amount of money out in the form of taxes. And I guess they do that because they know that if they didn't take it then, it would be really hard for them to get it from us at other times. Therefore, Bob should similarly set aside a small, predetermined amount of his wages that he got paid. Now, for most people, I'd say 10%, but for him, it should be much higher than that because of his age. So I've heard it say that you should save your age in percentage of your net after-tax income. In other words, if you're 30, you should save 30% of your income or save it to invest it. And if you're 60, you should be saving 60% of your income. Now, I'm not sure that he can actually do that, but we've all heard of the power of putting aside a small amount of money to secure our future. So why doesn't everybody do it? We've also heard the idea that we should pay ourselves first, yet most of us don't do it. Although many of us do make an attempt, we want to put some money aside to save for the rainy day, we want to invest. Why doesn't it happen as we plan? And I've spoken to many people who told me the same thing. No matter how hard they try, they just never manage to get ahead. They run out of money before the end of the month, and regardless of how much they earn, they only just have enough to pay the bills and scrape by. The scary thing is, I hear the same story from people who earn $55,000 a year to people making over $200,000 a year. Just think of my friend Dr. Bob, who earns well over $300,000 and he's still constantly broke. Now, you're probably thinking, Michael, that can't be true. It can't be possible. If I made that amount of money, I'd be rich by now. But would you? Would you find somewhere to spend it on? The simple fact is that because Dr. Bob does what most people do, spending all the money he makes and then some, he's got no investments, he's got nothing set aside for a rainy day. That fight to get ahead's never worked for him. So the basis of success in moving up the levels of investors is live below your means so that you've got some money left over and convert your earned income into assets that are going to eventually generate passive income. Since there's no amount of money you can't outspend, managing your cash flow is essential to build wealth. As you can see, it's not what you earn that counts, it's what you spend that makes the difference. Good cash flow management is going to be critical at every stage of your investment journey. So, thank you for listening to this long-winded story, but I hope you're getting my point. Now it's time for some home truths. How far up the investment ladder are you? Where do you currently sit in this hierarchy of investors? Remember, this assessment of your current investment level has nothing to do with your income, as I've explained. You could be a low-income earner on your day job, but still be a level 2 or level 3 investor. Likewise, you could be considered rich, but not have much to show for because you spend everything you earn. So I want you to understand that active income, an income you make, the pay packet you work for, has nothing to do with the level of investor. And in fact, it's one of the worst predictors I've found. But one of the great things about financial freedom is you're going to have the freedom to choose the life, this lifestyle that you want to live. Now, it's your choice, but you can't do it alone. It's too hard. But if you are looking for some assistance, if you're wanting some help, now that you've heard this story, why not get the team at Metropole to help you? Because there's a number of ways we can do this. So whether you're looking at buying a home or investing in a property, sure, our property markets are moving ahead, but we've got a number of different ways we could help you. Number one, we give strategic property advice. We could build you a strategic plan for you, your family. That's bringing your future into the present so you can do something about it. We have a wealth advisory service. Ken Race runs that, where we can provide strategic, tailored financial planning and wealth advice about structuring yourself, about getting the right asset protection in place, about estate planning. Of course, we've got a buyer's agency, Australia's most trusted buyer's agency, that's been involved in over $3 billion worth of transactions, creating wealth for our clients. We can do the same for you. We've got our own on-the-ground teams in Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane, and they bring you years of experience. They bring you perspective, something that money can't buy. So we can help you buy a home or an investment property. And of course, our property management services in Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane give stress-free property management. We look after $2 billion worth of property for our clients, so we know what works and what doesn't and how to make you rich. So thank you for allowing me to share these 4 levels of investors with you. Where are you? Where do you want to be? Now, remember, money doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care where you are now. But there's no reason why in this country you can't work your way up those rungs and reach the top of level 4 investor. Let me ask you a question. Do you want to be a level 4 investor? Then invest in yourself first, get a good team around you, and I hope to be part of your wealth creation journey.
Now here's Michael's mindset message. Remember, a change in your thinking will lead to a change in your life.
My mindset message today comes from my mentor, Jim Rohn, and he taught me to do remarkable things. I think you'll find this particularly useful if you're going through some challenges in your life at the moment. And even if you're not, and I hope you're not, I bet you're going to get some benefit from this message as well. Because Jim Rohn said when it comes to meeting and conquering negativity in your life, there's one key question you should ask yourself. What can you do starting today that will make a difference? He asked, what can you do when the economy turns sour? What can you do when everything's gone wrong? What can you do when you run out of money, when you feel unwell, when it's all gone sour? What can you do? And Jim Rohn said, let me give you the broad answer first. He said, you can do the most remarkable things no matter what happens. He said, people can do incredible things, unbelievable things, despite the most impossible or disastrous circumstances. And here's why humans can do remarkable things. Because they are remarkable. Jim Rohn said humans are different from any other creation. When a dog starts with weeds, he winds up with weeds. The reason is because he's a dog. And that's not true with human beings. Humans can turn weeds into gardens. Humans can turn nothing into something, pennies into fortunes, disasters into success. And the reason they can do such remarkable things is because they are remarkable. Try reaching down inside yourself. You'll come up with some of those remarkable human gifts. They're there, waiting to be discovered, waiting to be employed. With those gifts, you can change anything for yourself. You can change anything you wish to change. And I challenge you to do that because you can change. If you don't like how something is, change it. If something isn't enough, change it. If something doesn't suit you, change it. If something doesn't please you, change it. You don't have to ever be the same after today. If you don't like your present, change it. You're not a tree, said Jim Rohn. If there's one thing to get excited about, it's your ability to make yourself do the necessary things to get the desired results to turn the negative into success. Now that's true excitement. Well, I hope you got something from today's podcast. I hope you now understand where you are in the level of investors, where you want to be, and are beginning to understand what you need to do to get to the next level. And if you got some benefit from this and you know somebody else who wants to become financially independent through property, please let them know about this show. Tell them about it, send them an email, do something on social media, but let them know so we can help more people become financially fluent. And if you really enjoyed it, why not tell the world by leaving a review on Apple, iTunes, podcast, wherever you like. 1 star, 5 stars, as many stars as you like. And if I read out your review, I'm happy to give you a gift as a way of saying thank you, a gift of one of my books, as I'm going to do for Sash, who left a review last year. It takes me a while to get through some of these because I get so many each week, but I really appreciate it when you do them. So if you hear your review read out, email me, michael@metropole.com.au, and I'd be happy to gift you a book as I'm going to send to Sash, who said highly recommended, 5-star review. Even though I've been following Michael through his email subscription for some time now, this is the first time I've listened to his podcast, and boy, am I impressed. Great content, which I'd strongly recommend to anyone who's interested in property investing and wants to get out of the rat race. Well, Sash, I hope you really got benefit from today's show, which was to help you get out of the rat race. Now, in between the twice weekly shows, you can catch me at Property Update, as Sash is obviously doing, subscribing to my daily newsletter. You can follow me on social media at Michael Yardney or my YouTube channel as well. I have regular videos with Dr. Andrew Wilson. And twice a week, I'll be here to discuss success, money, property investment with you. In the meantime, have a great week. Make it a great week.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Michael Yardney podcast, which was brought to you by Metropole, who help their clients grow, protect, and pass on their wealth through strategic property and wealth advice. If you like what you heard and don't already subscribe, you'll find us on iTunes or on your favorite Android app as the Michael Yardney podcast. Watch out for our next show, which comes to you twice a week, and you'll learn some new ideas about property investment, success, and money in around 30 minutes. To get more of Michael's thoughts, go across to www.propertyupdate.com.au and sign up for his daily morning briefing, and you'll hear from not only Michael, but a group of leading property success and money experts. And just a reminder that the information you heard in this show today is general educational advice and not specific investment advice, as we don't know your personal circumstances. If you're looking for specific advice, why not ask the team at Metropole to help you?